You are watching the Midtable Up Podcast highlights. Please put your foot through the like button and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow us on our social media and on Spotify and the podcasts app.
So mine, I think we could debate about his position. It's Phil Jones. You're talking
love that. No,
you're
I
talking
absolutely love that.
You're talking about a player that at the age of 21, Alex Ferguson said, quote, "The way he's looking, he could be our best ever player," which is massive.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Massive props for a player that looks like he's never played football ever in his life, who looks genuinely afraid of the football.
I think you're being unkind to him a bit there, because I remember him playing for Blackburn, and he was fantastic that year. Like, there was a reason he deserved that move on the back of that season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm not saying he's been afraid of football of football his whole life, because that's absolutely not what I'm saying. But in recent years, he's looked petrified.
I mean, the memes are fantastic, let's be honest.
Oh, God, the faces.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great shout, to be honest with you, because
agree.
For me, Phil Jones, that first season at Manchester United, I thought he did well. And I thought, he's going to be here. I mean, turns out he was there for a while, so I suppose I was right.
Because they couldn't get anyone else in there.
Yeah, no, honestly, I thought he was going to be their rock at the centre-back, for years to come. And, I thought he was going to be one of these great players that the Premier League has seen. And, he's been an absolute I feel like mediocre is almost... I don't want to say giving him too much credit, but I feel like it almost is, because... you're a Manchester United man, and he's never, for obvious reasons, for a little while now, he's been nowhere near close to first choice. And when he had that great season at Blackburn, you thought he was going to be incredible. And, as you said, Sir Alex Ferguson said that he could be the best Manchester United player ever. Not just, best Manchester United player that he ever managed or he ever saw. Best Manchester United player ever. So, you're looking at like Bobby Charlton, George Best, Dennis Law at that point. And I completely agree. Obviously, I think he's been largely, at absolute best, he's been average at points for Manchester United. He's been there a long time, but I would probably put that down to the fact that probably no one that could afford his wages would want him, to be fair, and he's probably not been terrible enough to be released either. So
and Manchester United have had trouble with that position for
I think one of the big things that went about against Phil Jones, certainly early in his career, is no one could work out what his best position was, because he played at right back, he played defensive midfield, he played centre half, and that versatility.
I think that definitely hindered his career.
It gives you something early, but eventually someone's got to decide for him what's your best position. Let's start working on getting you to that level. I
agree. I 100% agree, and I think the worst thing for his career was trying to move him into holding midfield, because for me, he just didn't have possibly the technical tools to do that role. I don't think he could relay possession well enough to do that holding midfield role. And as you said, he was kind of shoved from right back to holding midfield. I think that was the biggest mistake that managers of his had. I think they should have just gone, you're a true centre-back, because for me that was clear, and obviously that was where he started his career. That was where his biggest qualities were, in the centre-back role. And they should have just gone, you're not a jack of all trades, and we don't need you to be a jack of all trades. Let's just leave you at centre-back and let you blossom. And it never happened, and as you said, he was kind of pushed from pillar to post, and in the end, he kind of didn't end up being good in any position, because he was never given enough time in any of them. Yeah. So for that, I kind of have a bit of sympathy, but yeah.
And do you think he'd have probably had a bit more time to find his feet in the later stages of his career if he wasn't playing for the behemoth that is Manchester United?
That's always the way.
If he played for someone...
Possibly.
Yeah, if he played for someone further down the table that probably doesn't have the spending power.
If he'd stayed at Blackburn for a bit longer, or even gone back out on loan to Blackburn, and had another year of development there as a centre-back, maybe that would have been important for him.
Even then, though, you've got to think, though, over the last 10 years, because, he's been there since, 2010, something like that. You've got to think, though, over the last 10 years, that, Manchester United in that time have gone out and bought centre-backs like Eric Bailly. They've gone out and brought Harry Maguire for world record money, of course. And you've got to be looking at those players. And if I was him, I would be looking and going, well, they've obviously bought those players for a reason. And now it is, you could understand, say, maybe trying to fight for your position. But when you're going out and spending £80 million on Harry Maguire, and you've been there 8 years at this point, and he can't have played more. If he's played more than 300 games for Manchester United, I will be shocked. He might have done, but that's what I mean. In 10 years, that's a terrible return. And I've got to be, if you're Phil Jones and you're seeing, as you said, all these big money moves for like Eric Bailly, Harry Maguire, and you've been there that long at that point, why are you going to stick around and try? All right, you could argue it's Manchester United, but I think from a playing perspective, for me, if I was him, I'd be thinking, well, they don't want me. They don't think I'm good enough because they've gone out and bought these players, and I've been here for so long at this point that's not really going to change. If he'd only been there a year or two, you can kind of go, fair enough. Like, I could still, change their minds. But when you've been there 8-9 years and they're dropping world record fees on Harry Maguire, that would be sending me the message that they clearly don't think I'm good enough and I'm at best, an understudy here. So, if he's happy with that, then fair enough. But yeah, I think that's a great shout to the list, to be honest with you, Phil Jones. There was so much. People thought he was gonna be brilliant, and as I said, an absolute best. He's been average. That is the best I can describe him. That's the final whistle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Midtable Up Podcast. If you enjoy our top 10 lists, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Let us know what you would have done differently. If you watch this episode on YouTube, make sure to put your foot through that subscribe button and leave a like on the video, as well as follow us on Spotify and the Podcasts app to keep up to date with the series. Thank you very much. See you next time.